Okay. Anytime you're ready.
Anytime I'm ready, eh?
Or if you want, I can pick it up.
No, I can pick it up. I'm just thinking for a second.
Support for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere comes from MX Publishing, with the largest catalog of new Sherlock Holmes books in the world. New novels, biographies, graphic novels, and short story collections about Sherlock Holmes. Find them at mxpublishing.com.
And listeners like you who support us on Patreon or Substack, sign up for exclusive benefits at patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock or IHearOfSherlock.substack.com.
I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, episode 311, The Digital Archives at the Toronto Public Library.
I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became astronomer.
In a world where it's always 1895, it's I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, a podcast for devotees of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the world's first unofficial consulting detective.
I've heard of you before. You're Holmes the meddler, Holmes the busybody, Holmes the Scotland Yard Jack in office.
The game's afoot as we interview authors, editors, creators, and other prominent Sherlockians on various aspects of the great detective in popular culture.
As we go to press, sensational developments have been reported.
So join your hosts, Scott Monty and Bert Wolder, as they talk about what's new in the world of Sherlock Holmes.
You couldn't have come at a better time!
I'm Bill Curtis. This is I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. Now, here are your hosts, Scott Monty and Bert Wolder.
Well, thank you, Bill Curtis. Welcome to I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast for Sherlock Holmes devotees where it's always 1895. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Bert Wolder.
And Bert, are you headed north to Toronto these days?
Only in my heart am I headed north. I wish I was there in person. But the interesting thing is that you can visit there anytime you like, simply by using their digital archive online.
Yeah, you can check in, but you can never leave. Oh, no, wait, that's the Hotel California. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, once you had a taste.
I was in a Marriott a lot like that once.
Oh. Yeah, but the room service is spectacular.
It is spectacular. And eventually they fixed the elevators so we could leave.
Well, the good news is, if you do check out the Toronto Public Library's digital archives, you won't want to leave. What are they all about? How do you get to them? And what will we expect to find there? Well, stay tuned. Our interview with Jessie Amaolo is coming up after a few other things that we're going to cover. We should remind you that if you'd like to support the show, you can go ahead and do that at patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock or IHearOfSherlock.substack.com. Either way, that'll get you access to bonus content and to further discussion within the community there. And over on Patreon, we do have some thank you gifts at certain levels for our supporters. So whatever works for you, your contributions are highly appreciated because they allow us to continue to pay for all of the electronic stuff that hosts these MP3s and show notes and all the rest. And you can listen to us wherever you happen to get podcasts. You can ask your smart speaker. You can find us on YouTube. And, of course, you can listen to us directly on the desktop, as well as on things like Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and more. We are really meant to be flexible for all of your Sherlockian listening needs. And bring others along, too. It's more fun when you listen together and have this cultural touchstone to share together. Oh, the stately tread on the stairs. That means, it means Mrs. Hudson's coming. No, it means it's the learned societies. We take a portion of each episode. We talk about 2 weeks worth of events that are going on in the Sherlockian world. These can be found at Sherlockiancalendar.com, which is run by Ron Fish. You can certainly look at all of the entries there by going to Sherlockiancalendar.com and clicking on the various links. And there also is information there if you would like to get information in front of Ron for your Sherlockian organization to help publicize when and where you're going to meet. So taking a look at the second half of June 2025, Bert, lead us off.
Well, on the 15th of June in Seattle, Washington, it's the Sound of the Baskervilles, an in-person meeting. David Haugen is the contact for that.
Excellent. And also on the 15th in Madison, Wisconsin, the Notorious Canary Trainers are meeting in person. You can talk to Glenn Link at the Notorious Canary Trainers website.
Our friend Matt Hall in Columbia, Maryland, is having a meeting of Watson's Tin Box of Ellicott City, a dinner meeting. I thought it was Endicott City, not Ellicott City.
No, it is Ellicott City.
It is Ellicott City.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wrong again.
That's all right. Well,
that's on the 16th.
Yes, in Irvington, New York, on the 21st of June, the Three Garridebs of Westchester County. Is that supposed to be Irvington or is it Washington? Oh, sorry.
That's a good question.
You can check out the Three Garridebs at threegarridebs.com. Ben and Sue Vazoski are in charge of the Three Garridebs.
Yes. The Norwegian Explorers has a virtual meeting on the 21st of June. Tom Gottwalt is the contact for that.
Also on the 21st in Nashville, Tennessee, the Nashville Scholars of the Three-Pipe Problem are having a lunch meeting. Jeff Stewart is your contact there.
And we have a crossover scion founded in 1993, the Clients of Adrian Mulliner. And I am involved in that along with Scott Daniels and David Leal and Lee Shackelford. And we have a virtual meeting coming up on June 22nd.
Oh, excellent. Oh, and also one that's probably not too far from you, Bert, in Middlesex County, New Jersey. The Middlesex Constabulary is having a meeting on June 25th, and Paul Hartnett is going to be running that. Is that far from you?
It's about an hour and a half south of where I am.
Well, you really have to be committed to go to that one.
Yeah, well, the constabulary insists. The Afghan Perceivers will have a virtual meeting on June 26. Brian Wilson is the contact for that.
He's come out of retirement from the Beach Boys?
Yes.
Excellent. In Chicago on June 28th, the Tourists International SS is having a meeting. Jonathan Schimberg is the contact. I sat next to Jonathan at the Conclave, a delightful individual. And you can find more about them at touristinternational.org.
June 28th in Indianapolis, the illustrious clients are on a field trip. Louise Haskett has all the info.
Our pal Eric Deckers in Claremont, Florida, is hosting a June 28th meeting of the Orange County Pips. You can check out his page. He set up a meetup page so people can get involved.
Chicago on June 29th, the Watsonians will be holding the Midwest Silver Blaze Race, and they have not yet come forth with a contact.
I think if you register for the Tourist International meeting, which is the day before, they are coordinating with the Watsonians. Those are both Chicago outfits. So
good.
Checking out. And then finally on June 29th in San Francisco, the Scourers and Molly Maguires are having a meeting. And who do you contact there? Well, who else but McMurdo? That'll do it for the Sherlockian societies, the learned societies this month. If you have additional events to share or would like to see your group up there, or you just want to check out what everyone else is doing, just go to Sherlockiancalendar.com. Well, if you're listening to this, we are beyond the May 17th event at Undershaw, hosted by MX Publishing in celebration of the final volumes of the MX Book of New Sherlock Holmes Stories. The good news is the event went on without a hitch. We got some mail from one of our listeners who said ACD would have wholeheartedly approved of the new use to which his beloved home has now been put. And the fact that MX Publishing is supporting this is all the better. And the good news is you can still get your hands on the MX books of new Sherlock Holmes stories. Multiple parts, multiple volumes, over 1,000 short stories by multiple authors, all edited by the steady hand of David Markham. They're divided up into eras from 1881 to 1889, 1890 to 1895, and 1896 and beyond. For anyone who's interested in pastiches or any kind of related Sherlock Holmes stories, this is the set you need to have. It is now complete after over 10 years and over 1,000 stories. Get your hands on any one of the volumes of the MX Book of New Sherlock Holmes Stories at mxpublishing.com. Jessie Amaolo has been the services specialist and curator of the Toronto Public Library's Arthur Conan Doyle Collection since 2018. During her tenure, she's been involved in acquiring and maintaining library materials, participated in conferences, arranged programs, curated gallery shows, and contributed to publications. Jessie Amaolo, welcome to I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, why don't you fill us in and tell us about how you first met Sherlock Holmes?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, I will say that I always kind of knew about him growing up, as he is universal. I had probably seen some films here and there when I was younger, possibly read some short stories, but actually one memory that sticks out is when I was in school, I was living at home still, and my parents used to watch the show Elementary every week, and I would just kind of get sucked in every week, just from being around, and then I'd start watching the intro, and then by the end of it, I was watching the whole episode with them. So, yeah, that was just kind of a bit of a fond memory, just because I've since lost my father. So it was just a nice time growing up. So it's something that I will always remember.
Yeah, it's sometimes those adolescent, those childhood memories and connections that we forge that end up being so strong throughout the rest of our lives. Now, as you began getting sucked into the television series, did you at any point find yourself curious about the stories, and what did you do about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was curious about the stories. I did end up reading them all in time, and yeah, I've really enjoyed them. What can I say? I do enjoy them. Yes, I do absolutely enjoy them. And I've grown to really appreciate them a lot more, having, now that I know so much about Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes and the type of appreciation that they attract. It's just been wonderful.
What was your experience when you joined the Toronto Public Library? Were you it must have been like a fire hose. I mean, if you you see Elementary and you read the Sherlock Holmes stories, and then all of a sudden, it's like a whole other universe, isn't it?
It totally is, and I was very naive at the time. I truly had no idea, but it's been wonderful, getting to see just how much is out there about Sherlock and Conan Doyle. So, if you want to hear a little bit of how I ended up here.
Sure.
Yes.
So I started working at the library as a teenager. I have a mother who worked for the system, and she encouraged me as a teen. It's a great job opportunity for teenagers, and so I stayed working for the library for a while, and I really enjoyed it. And at a certain point, I decided I want to make this my career. So I then went to what they call library school, got my Master's of Information Sciences. And I also studied, so while I was there, I really found I had a strong interest in rare books, manuscripts, and I even went back and studied some archives. So at that point, I was kind of finding my niche was kind of the rare book area, and I'm very fortunate. I work in a very large library system, and we have a really wonderful special collections department. So I kind of made that my focus, and I was very fortunate in that I ended up in that department very quickly after I graduated. And then soon after, I was given an opportunity to fill in for my predecessor, Peggy Perdue. Well, she was she took a short leave, I believe, to travel. So I was able to fill in for her for 6 months, and I gained incredible experience during that time. I got to, really sample all the hard work she does. And and then that led to an opportunity for a permanent position after she moved on to a more senior role in the department. So,
yeah. Say, Jessie, for those folks that are listening who might not know anything at all about the Toronto Public Library, can you talk a little bit about special collections as a universe and where Conan Doyle fits in there?
Yeah, happy to. So special collections at the Toronto Public Library in some ways has been around for over 100 years. Toronto Public Library started quite early, and a lot of collecting started very, very early on. Now I'm talking more about some of our Canadian historical collections, but that's kind of the basis of special collections here at Toronto Public Library. So over time, we have acquired some really wonderful things or materials over the years, and we're very fortunate to have some of those things in our collections today that we may not have been able to acquire had we just kind of started up. But so special collections at the Toronto Public Library has a really rich history, and it has always been right now it's at the Toronto Reference Library, so that's the large downtown branch. So that's where you'll find most of our special collections. I say most because we have a couple other collections that are still under our umbrella but are located at a different kind of library. But just to go over some of the collections that we have the Baldwin Collection of Canadiana, so that focuses on Canadian history. In that you'll find things like books, rare maps, manuscripts related to Canadian history, Toronto history, artwork, photographs, and ephemera, all kind of documenting Canadian history. Another collection we have is special collections in the arts. This kind of focuses more on both performing arts, mainly Canadian performing arts, so We have things like stage designs, we have costume designs, we have records from various theater designers. We have programs like musical programs, all those sorts of things. And then also within that, in the arts, are art books. So that is a focus on visual arts. So we might have books that are a complete artist's work, or we have items that are what we call artist books. So artist books are kind of books that are kind of created like a work of art rather than for their practical nature. They are more a work of art. And and also in that we have incunabula. So those are books published in the first 50 years of the printing press, mainly books in Latin and things like that. But they are quite old. Those ones date back to about, the earliest are about 1470s, 1460s. So we have I believe we have maybe even close to 50 of those. I might have to check, but we do have a great collection of those. And then recently, in recent years, we started the Chinese Canadian Archive. So that's a community-led archive, and it documents the history of Chinese Canadians in Canada, but also in Toronto, and how that has changed over time. And then obviously the Arthur Conan Doyle Collection, which I will come back to actually. But then we're moving out of Toronto Reference Library at a different library, the Lillian H. Smith branch. There's the Merrill Collection of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Speculative Fiction, and the Osborne Collection of Early Children's Literature. So those are kind of all of the collections that fall under the scope of special collections.
Oh, that's impressive. And even more impressive is that you can rattle it all off. Yeah.
Well, as curators, we are kind of expected to know generally about all of the collections still, so that we can provide, access to.
Now, if people are interested in seeing some of the collection or using the system as part of their research, is that available for anyone to partake in?
Oh yeah, I mean, so using the collections in their research?
Yeah.
So they can do that many ways. They can obviously schedule a time to come by. I say schedule, people can drop in. We tend to suggest making an appointment if they have kind of a large research question, and it might be better to, give it some thought before we have the patron come in, so we can gather materials and set them aside. Also, just trying to think. Well, obviously, the digital archive, which we'll get into, has been a huge kind of game changer for research and our ability to help remote users who aren't able to access the library in person. So that's a big component there. Yeah, so it's kind of a mix. We try to help people who are able to visit and also remote users as much as we can.
That's great. So one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is because we saw some news from the Magic Door. That's the newsletter from the Friends of the Arthur Conan Doyle Collection. In a recent issue that there is a growing digital archive there. And we're interested in hearing more about that. So why don't you tell us a little bit, first of all, about the ACD collection, and then more about, these recent developments in digitization.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll start with the Arthur Conan Doyle Collection. It is one of the world's largest research collections devoted to Conan Doyle and his life and works. In it, we have over about 25,000 items, Many of them are relating to Sherlock Holmes. But it does include a range of Doyle's fiction and his nonfiction. So it's not just Sherlock Holmes. It is his entire life and works. And some highlights of what we have. So we have things like manuscripts and correspondence. So within that, you'll find things like letters. We have some short stories. We have some notebooks. We have some travel diaries. We have some articles. Yeah, that's mainly the extent of. We have some plays within our manuscript collection. So those are all in Conan Doyle's hand. We do have various editions. So early editions, first editions, and we have things like translations. So we have an incredible amount of language translations. We have our parodies and pastiches, as you would expect. We have biographies, criticisms, and bibliographies, so some of the more research materials. We have many, many periodicals by Sherlockian groups from all over the world. We have a great collection of those, some very comprehensive and very, far-reaching in terms of, geographically. So that's wonderful. We're always adding to that. So another thing that we have in the collection is stage and screen adaptations. So within that, that would include things like programs, film scripts, stage designs, costume designs, any kind of book published about adaptations. And I will come back to the programs and the costume designs, because we do have some local designs from every year in Ontario at Niagara-on-the-Lake. There's a big festival called the Shaw Festival, and there's been a few years in recent years that they have put on Sherlock Holmes plays. So sometimes we're able to acquire like costume designs or scripts or things like that from local plays. But our collections are comprehensive, so we do try to collect obviously all programs that we can get our hands on. But just a shout out to Shaw in Toronto or in Ontario. So we have photographs. So we have, I believe, over 150 photographs related to Conan Doyle. So those include things like we have portraits. We have a lot of travel photos. So photos from his travels in Europe, Canada, Australia, and some of his kind of spiritualism tours. We have spirit photos, so we have actual photos of Conan Doyle appearing in spirit photos, and some family photos, just along those lines. And,
what's your favorite photo of Conan Doyle?
That's a good question. I have a favorite portrait photo. He's kind of like leaning on a fence. It's just I don't know. It's kind of just a wonderful photo of him. He looks just like an author. It's hard to describe. He's just very in it. I don't know. But, and then I do love, we have some of his spiritualism photos. So those are kind of neat. A couple of those, they are digitized. So if you're curious, you can check them out online. But yeah, you get things like ghosts and orbs and those kinds of elements appearing in photos with Conan Doyle. So those are quite unique and maybe my favorites. Yeah.
Now, in terms of the digitization, it seems to me like the photos would be top priority there. But what sorts of things have you and your team begun to digitize, and how do you decide what what gets digitized first?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I had a feeling you'd ask me that question. So let me start with that one. So how do we decide what gets digitized first? So I will say that we are very conscious of copyright with special collections. We are in a unique position as we have very old materials in many of our collections that are out of copyright. So we have to work within, with that framework in mind. So we digitize public domain items. So that's first and foremost. With the Conan Doyle collection, I tended to focus more on primary source materials. So items that researchers might not have access to because we may have one of the only copies here. And early, copies of it. So, or in some cases, one of a kind. So with that primary source, I kind of thought of the photos and then also the manuscripts that we have. So we have about 200, I'd say, manuscripts in our collection. And so within that, there's different things in that. There's letters. We have many letters. I think almost 160 or 70 letters. We have a few short stories that Conan Doyle wrote. We have some plays that he wrote, articles. We have like diaries, travel diaries, and things like that, and some notebooks. So, and those are all in Doyle's own handwriting. So these are things that are quite unique and would really kind of researchers, especially remote researchers, would really benefit from having access to these things. And also, even just considering rare and valuable items, like first editions, things like that may be, or more obscure early editions. Again, things that researchers might not have easy access to. So we've prioritized those. Also, we are a comprehensive collection, so I think it's important to consider a variety of subjects when digitizing. So, for instance, Conan Doyle, as many people know, got very involved in spiritualism, and we do have a pretty strong spiritualism collection here at the library. So obviously we want Sherlock, to be quite prevalent, but just including different aspects of Conan Doyle's life too gives a more broad and comprehensive look at our collection. And then you can also consider like a variety of formats, as I mentioned, even just photos, manuscripts, books. We have some original art online. We have some sheet music that Conan Doyle wrote or was written about Sherlock Holmes. We have kind of ephemera like pamphlets and things like that. Theater programs, we have translations, so just different kinds of materials too, depending on what researcher might be focusing on. So, yeah.
Well, it's an amazing inventory, and the fact that it's all been digitized. So, as I understand it, there about 800 items have been digitized so far. Is that a good number?
Yeah. So that's a good number. So yeah, I'll let me give you a little overview about our digital archive. So it's a digital platform where the library is able to scan material and have it online available digitally. Again, as I mentioned, Special Collections is in a unique position to do this because of a lot of the materials in our collections are out of copyright. Now, with the Arthur Conan Doyle collection, it does include very contemporary items. So obviously those items would not qualify for digitization. However, a lot of the early content we can still consider for digitization. So, and also in doing this, we provide access to remote users, and it also serves to help preserve materials, just to cut down on maybe some of the physical use of the item. So just as an alternative format that people have access to. So for the Arthur Conan Doyle content, yes, there's about 700 items online. Within that, we've digitized books, photographs from his travels, manuscripts, as I mentioned, ephemera. There was some original artwork in there, theater programs, all kinds of things.
Yeah, well, very good. But is there anything that stands out to you? You know, one of the things that struck me, a couple of things struck me when I was looking at the digital platform online. Mm-hmm. One is that it wasn't all that long ago that all of this was sort of A, unknown, and B, hidden from sight. I mean, there's a sort of a story associated with the Crown Diamond manuscript, which turned up in an exercise book and had been kept very closely guarded by Conan Doyle's son and his wife. And that happily was donated to the Toronto Public Library. Now you can see, what had been hidden from view. The whole exercise book is available. But also the letters, the letters of Conan Doyle writing to his editor, Greenhouse Smith at the Strand, really give you an insight into the issues that got his attention, and his notes, are really as beautifully composed as some of his prose is, as he just. It's like you're sort of listening in you're sort of reading through a conversation in real time. Is there anything that as you've looked at all of this that stood out to you that you said, oh wow, look at that?
Well, definitely the letters, which you've just touched on. We have an incredible collection of letters from Conan Doyle to his editor at the Strand, Greenhouse Smith. Those letters, so we have about 95 of them, and they mainly cover the time period from about 1903 to 1930, and they make many references to the Sherlock Holmes stories, and in particular the return of Sherlock Holmes, and some notes about the Hound of the Baskervilles, and yeah, it just gives a real insight into their relationship, into their business dealings. Seemed like they had a lot of respect for each other. And they go into things like plot negotiations. They kind of talk about, Conan Doyle talks about proofs and installments. He kind of talks about in some of them how he's having difficulty remembering the last installment, and can you send me a copy, and things like that. They talk about edits. They go over some copyright, things like that. So it's just really interesting to see. And they also talk about, they have discussions about kind of the order they're going to publish the stories in, separating up some of the more violent ones from the less violent ones, and thoughts around that, the flow of the stories. So it's just fascinating stuff.
Are you always on the lookout for more Conan Doyle material? I mean, how does the collection continue to grow, or does it do you view it as a static collection?
Oh yeah, so definitely we are always looking to grow. We really try to be as comprehensive as we can, and as you know, that so much has been written about and created around Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle, and continues to be. So, as curator, I mean, I'm always on the lookout for items that we may have, missed or are missing from our earlier days of collecting, some rare earlier editions. I will say though, we have a pretty whole collection. But also any new books that come out, I'm always on the lookout to get those. And then we also really welcome donations. So if anyone's ever interested in donating to the collection, that's one way that we acquire new materials. So yes, we're always adding to the collection, and looking for any opportunity to,
So if someone came to you with a previously unknown Dr. John H. Watson manuscript
Yes, please.
in a
Yes,
tin
please.
box, you take that. All right.
Oh yeah. Yes, we would definitely take that.
That would be the ultimate find.
Yeah, it really would. Yeah. Yeah. I obviously work very closely with the Friends of the Arthur Conan Doyle Collection that we have here at the library. They're a wonderful organization, and so they put on like a large lecture every year, the Cameron Hollier Memorial Lecture, and I'm involved in that, and then I'm also involved in their newsletter. I have a regular column. And then also the Bootmakers of Toronto, we work closely with them. So they have programs here at the library throughout the year, their events. And I'm currently involved with the ACD Society. I am a chair for their honors awards that they present every year. So I oversee the Visual Arts Award that is awarded to people who have contributed, works of art relating to Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle. So that's something that I'm involved in every year too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of art, isn't there a little alleyway near the TPL that is
Yes.
decorated with Sherlockian art? What's that all about?
Yeah, so that's the Sherlock Holmes Walk mural. So this was a project that the Friends had been, they had put forth many years ago, actually, and it finally has come to happen, which is great. There was some involvement from counselors and things like that, and a Toronto art group called Street Art Toronto. So it was kind of a group of organizations involved. Sorry, I'm if I'm not explaining this very well, but so basically, it is a mural that appears behind the library, and it was commissioned by Street Art Toronto, and a call went out to 15 street artists, and they created artwork that is inspired by Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes. So they used their own interpretations of the stories, their own experiences, and they created this huge mural that represents Conan Doyle, Sherlock, and was inspired by the collection. And it is a temporary mural at the moment. It resides on some construction hoarding that is that is temporary, but we're hoping to have it become a permanent installation. So the building that it is currently up against is the Toronto Transit Commission building that's being renovated, and we're hoping that it will become a permanent installation there.
And that would be lovely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really wonderful. It's an extremely long, 150-foot long walkway, and you can see wonderful art up on the wall. And it's just also gives people, it's kind of a sense of what they can see, when they come up and visit the collection. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Jesse, as you've spent more time with the collection, I know you joined in 2018. So we're talking about almost 7 years of association with this collection and with Conan Doyle. How have your perceptions of him, either as an author or as an individual, changed or evolved over that time?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, when I started the job, I didn't know too much about him other than he was the author of the Sherlock Holmes stories. I've kind of grown to appreciate just how kind of curious and inquisitive he was. He really kind of wanted, I got a sense that he wanted to kind of learn everything and write about all aspects of things, even things going on in daily life. He wanted to get involved in so many different things like politics and the wars and writing and just all kinds of things. So I've really come to appreciate that. I call it curiosity, and I kind of relate to that because I'm a little bit similar in my curiosity. I like to learn as much as I can and absorb as much as I can. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I've really grown to appreciate too all of the research and scholarship that has grown around Conan Doyle. Just I've learned some really wonderful things from all the scholars, and it's been great to kind of have a front row seat to all of that.
Yeah, well, and I think that goes hand in hand, that the curiosity of researchers following along the curiosity of Conan Doyle. I think it was Dorothy Parker who once said that curiosity is the cure for boredom, and that there is no cure for curiosity.
I like that.
Well, for the curious among us, where can we go online to learn more about the Arthur Conan Doyle collection and the digital archive?
Yeah, so if you go to the Toronto Public Library website, which is, you can just shorten it, tpl.ca, there's a tab at the top that says e-resources and research, and if you just kind of hover over that, you'll see at the bottom right, there's a link to the digital archive. And from there, it gives you a search bar. So this is grouping in all of our different special collections that I noted. But if you did a search for Arthur Conan Doyle, it will pull up over 750 items. And this is something that we're constantly adding to. So if you're curious about the process, basically to get something digitized, we use what we call a content management system. So it's kind of like the back end of what you see. So we put in all of the relevant metadata. And then once that's done, there is an internal department at Toronto Public Library, at the Toronto Reference Library here, where my colleagues then will scan the items. They have special scanners for rare items. And once the item is scanned, they will link the item to the metadata record, and the item comes back to us, and we check the record, and then we will, in a sense, publish it. and then it will appear on the digital archive. So, yeah, we're always working through adding things. I mean, there's 700 items. There are over 25,000 items in the collection. Obviously, as I mentioned, a great deal of them are still in copyright, but definitely there are many items that would be eligible for the digital archive. So it's one of our, our regular kind of tasks here. We definitely prioritize adding things to the digital archive because it serves so many of our users and helps show what we have in special collections.
Great.
Excellent.
Well, I am looking forward to peeking under the hood just a little bit more myself, and looking forward to what more comes our way in the digital archive of the Arthur Conan Doyle Collection at the Toronto Public Library.
Yeah.
Jessie, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your really interesting job with us here on I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's amazing. We know so little about so many authors, and then we know so much about so many other authors. But the first time I went to the digital collection of the library online, I was really struck by, a couple of things. One is it's really easy to find things. And two, the quality of the digitization is just terrific. And you can download copies of these letters and the other images and things that you can find if you want to look at them a little more closely. But really what came out to me is that so much of this material is so insightful about the world and mind of Conan Doyle. You find him writing to his editor, and there's no preamble to any of these letters, like, oh, how nice to see you the other day. No, it's my dear Smith. And then bang, detective stories would not fairly characterize them. And I want to give myself a very free hand. And he's just writing about things that he has underway. He's keeping his editor informed about his progress. I just finished story number 5. It's not very good. And it just opens up, a whole new window into thinking about Conan Doyle and how he produced everything he produced.
It sounds like some of my letters, actually. It's not very good. Just finished it. No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this window that we get into Conan Doyle and just his mindset. And to me, one of the things that Jessie said that stuck with me was about his insatiable curiosity. And how lucky we are that Conan Doyle was curious about so many things. Obviously, it led him to write the 60 stories about Holmes, but so many other things across so many different paths of life. And you get a sense, the way she was describing him, that 2 lifetimes would not have been enough for him, given his voracious interests and passions that he had for so many things. So, now, have you ever had a chance to go up and physically visit the Toronto Public Library?
No, I haven't. But something to look forward to.
Yeah. I was up there, maybe about 10 years ago, speaking at a conference just around the corner from the library. So I made it a point to reach out to Peggy McFarland, Purdue, who was there at the time. And she gave me a lovely private tour of the collection and behind the scenes. And, I didn't have nearly enough time to spend there, just as Conan Doyle doesn't seem to have nearly enough years to complete all of his interests.
The conversation kept going, and we have it as bonus content for our subscribers. We have a quick sample here. If you'd like to hear the entire thing, just sign up at patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock or ihearofsherlock.substack.com.
Had no idea. If I ever knew this, I'd forgotten. But his youngest sister, and she was the one who was named after Brian Waller, the doctor. So this is Brian Mary, something Doyle, wrote a book. And she had the strangest pseudonym for it. She wrote it under the name of H. Ripley Cromarsh. What? Yeah. And Grant Richards, who published Duet, his book Duet, around 1900 or whenever it was, also published her book by H. Ripley Cromarsh, The Episodes of Marge, Memoirs of a Humble Adventuress. And the only reason I know this existed is that I was looking at the archive at the Toronto Digital Public Library, and there's a letter, Dear Grant Richards, and he's writing, to find out if they owe him some money because he hasn't had any money from them about Duet in a while, and B, his sister's book.
Wow.
She apparently wrote 2 books.
Did she have a different pseudonym for the other one?
I think she eventually just copped to her married name, which was, she married a guy named Angel, I think, or Angel, or I don't know, Angell, as I remember it. Which
was
I gather
was it Hosmer with 2 R's?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wonder if it was before or after Hosmer.
Well, we will have to write to P. Jehoshaphat Peters Smartgard and see what
Esquire. Esquire. Yeah, it goes right to the lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, that there has to be a special part of every author's brain that is dedicated to inventing names.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got that old Donald Redmond book, A Study in Sources, where he looks at some. If you'd like to hear the rest of this bonus episode, please sign up with us as a supporter. It's A Chance of Listening with your correspondent, Madeline Quinones.
Hello, everyone. I'm Madeline Quinones, and today we are diving into a podcast that got started in 2020. Here's the thing. I think the COVID-19 pandemic gave new meaning to the words, "Here though the world explode, these two survive." Because the world did explode, but the Sherlockian community survived. We found new ways to stay connected despite lockdown. This is actually when I found my way into the community finally, when I found out that Sherlockians were holding society meetings on Zoom. This is when 5 Miles from Anywhere got started, and when the John H. Watson Society, as an international society, was able to have meetings for the first time ever. And some societies, including those 2, are still Zooming. During this time, Steve Doyle came up with the video podcast, The Fortnightly Dispatch, as another way to stay connected. Each episode, he interviews a different Sherlockian or discusses Sherlockian history in a small group setting. But unlike iHost or the Baker Street Babes, the interviews are really not about current or upcoming projects because the first season is recorded in lockdown and the second season is recorded during the transition period from lockdown to the vaccine rollout. And then the third season follows the established format. This allows for more of a cozy chat between friends, or an oral history style of interview. You get truly a wealth of interesting and wonderful Sherlockians, including 2 who are no longer with us, Nicholas Utekin and Russell Merritt. There's some overlap with iHost guests, and Scott and Bert show up themselves, but every episode is fun and well worth the listen. So let's get to the highlights. Well, this is a video podcast, so I think it's only fair to call out the 2 episodes in particular which really take advantage of the visual medium. The interview with Ross Davies in Season 2 is arguably the best interview with Ross on any podcast, for the simple reason that we get to see some of the stuff he makes. If you know Ross, You know he likes to make neat collectibles for his greenbag publications, and here we actually get to see some of that. The funny thing is that the other episode with a strong visual component also involves Ross. It's called Davies on Doyle and flips the script so that Ross is interviewing Steve, and Steve takes us on a video tour of his very cool basement. It's a lot of fun. I'll throw in one more episode. Alexander Woollcott and the BSI. An episode from Season 3 featuring Ray Betzner and Steve Rothman, wherein the three men discuss the first BSI dinner and the infamous intrusion of Alexander Woollcott. It's a different and fun look at Sherlockian history. The Fortnightly Dispatch has been on a bit of a hiatus for a while. Possibly there was some sort of conference or conclave getting in the way? Maybe. I do recall Steve saying that he wanted to make the show a limited run, and that it wasn't quite done yet, so I do hope he finishes it someday. And that's all I've got for now. Now I've got to run and record my own podcast. Bye!
Oh, what a delight, Madeline, that you continue this series. And I am sadly aware that by the time that summer winds down, by mid-September, I think you will have exhausted this wonderful series. You will be out of Sherlockian podcasts to review.
Really?
So, yeah. And I mean, this one was great. You know, the Fortnightly Dispatch. It's a video podcast, which is a nice change up. You know, I think we've spent a lot of time only on audio podcasts. And Steve Doyle he's a video guy. He's a video producer, so it makes sense that you'd want to do that. But I guess we should kind of plan for what kind of segment we'll have that will replace Madeline's lovely segment here eventually.
We have to give Madeline a new topic, or people need to start more podcasts.
Or, you know, if folks have ideas and you want to send them in to us, please let us know. Shoot us a note at comment@ihearofsherlock.com and put forth your suggestions. You know, of course, we have the events that we talk about in the early part of the show. We've had this wonderful thing with online, with podcasts. But what else would you like us to hear? Would you like to hear from us? Would you like us to cover in the way of Sherlockian interest? Could be, I don't know, a theater review, book review, interview, short interviews, etc. I don't know, but we will rely on you, dear listeners, because you are the ones who, well, unfortunately, have to listen to all of this. God bless. Oh, those strings can mean only one thing. That's right. It is time for the Canonical Couplet, the Sherlockian quiz program, where we give you 2 lines of poetry and ask you to tell us which Sherlock Holmes story we're talking about. The last time we were here in episode 310, we gave you this clue. Dogs don't make mistakes, claimed Sherlock Holmes. That uncovered the ruse, as did some old bones. Well, speaking of old bones, Bert.
Yes. Bye, Cracky.
Do you know what the heck we're talking about?
Of course I do. Of course. That's the case. James M. Dodd is a soldier who consults Sherlock Holmes and asks him to find his lost comrade Godfrey Emsworth, who is in hiding because he was humiliated in a hazing ritual. It's the case Watson called the Pantsed Soldier.
Oy! That one hurt.
I'm not making this up, you know.
No, I wish you would. Yeah, I was afraid you'd say that. Well, this is something else. And we turn to our pal Eric Deckers, who says, Jinkies? A nice nod to Velma from Scooby-Doo. He says, Jinkies, I've solved it. This is the story of how, with the aid of Holmes and Watson, Sir Robert Norberton and his friends covered up the death of Lady Beatrice Norberton by parading her body around the grounds of the Norberton estate to make it look like she was still alive. It's the story Watson called Weekend at Shosco Mold Place. Except I may be thinking of another classic piece of cinema, and this one is just the adventure of Shosco Mold Place. Well, that is correct, Eric. You're on the right track. Well, in this case, we had a number of people who, of course, did get it right. I'm glad to hear that. And so we will pull out the prize wheel and give it a big spin. And it is going around and around and landing on number 28. 28. And that looks like it is a Rich Kriskunis. Hey, Rich. Glad to have you back on board here. And this has nothing to do, Bert, I should say, with Rich giving me a ride to the Canonical Conclave last month. Rich, we have something from the IHO's vaults. As a matter of fact, it's a custom gift. Something that you and I were talking about on that ride. So that should be an interesting addition to our prize vault. Now, this time around, we have another Vaultian prize for the person who, when correctly selected via the prize wheel, guesses this clue. The killer nearly escaped if it weren't for a hook. The clue was buried in a half-remembered book. If you know the answer to this episode's canonical couplet, put it in an email addressed to comment@ihearofsherlock.com with canonical couplet in the subject line. If you are among all the correct answers and we choose your name at random, you'll win. Good luck. Oh boy, oh boy.
Oh boy, oh boy.
We did it. Well, we have a couple of interesting things in the hopper for future interviews. I'm just waiting for a few things to clear before we can announce what they are, or who they are, or when they will be. But we are always looking for exciting folks to interview and to share ideas with the Sherlockian community. So feel free to keep the ideas coming our way, people. We appreciate your participation.
Absolutely.
Now, next up for you, Bert, here in we're now at the middle of May. What's going on your Sherlockian calendar in the near future?
Well, it's that we're having a joint meeting of the Men on the Tour and the Cornish Horrors in beautiful Waterford, Connecticut, on Sunday, the 18th of May.
That sounds lovely. I remember my tour days very, very happily.
And we will probably, certainly be celebrating the life of our dear departed friend, Tyke Niver.
Yeah. He was a big force in my Sherlockian life. And I was asked to write his terrace. You know, we stand with me here upon the terrace as we do for our irregulars. I was asked to write that for the Baker Street Journal. And we'll have a multimedia version up, I think, on the IHO's website in not too long. But
oh, good.
You know, this is one of those that because he was so close, it became more difficult to write rather than easier to write. I don't know if that rings true for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
You want to get it just right and honor his memory appropriately. And there's so much that, I could share, but, it needs to be a reasonable length. So, but for those of you who don't want to wait for that or don't even care to listen to look at it, we did interview Tyke and Teddy Niver here on the show. I think back on episode 126 called "Becoming the Gillettes." Of course, in Connecticut, they both donned period garb and showed up at Gillette Castle, where the men on the tour used to meet. And they impersonated William and Helen Gillette and informed visitors there, tourists and whatnot, purely out of the goodness of their hearts. They were not paid employees or anything. They just did it because they loved it and brought joy to so many people in doing so. Well, in the meantime, we hope that we have brought you some joy around here, people. And this is the always joyful Scott Monty.
And I'm the perpetually cheerful Burt Wolder.
Oh, turn on the perpetual cheer machine, shall we? And together we say the
games
afoot.
The game's afoot.
You know, I'm afraid that in the pleasure of this conversation, I'm neglecting business of importance, which awaits me elsewhere.
Thank you for listening. Please be sure to join us again for the next episode of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast dedicated to Sherlock Holmes.
Goodbye, and good luck, and believe me to be, my dear fellow, very sincerely yours, Sherlock Holmes.